Cogent Roleplay is a brand new tabletop RPG system with extremely easy to understand rules that I'm gonna teach you right now. It has infinitely customizable character creation and a combat system that'll blow your mind. And Jazza, one of the creators of the game, is bringing me into this thing. I wanna show you guys how to play it from start to finish. Let's go. Just like in most role-playing games, the players play their characters and the game master plays everything else in the world. They are the referee of the rules and play together alongside everyone else at the table and tell the story together. Cogent also calls these game masters narrators too, because Cogent heavily focuses on the story and the characters. So why not start there with some character creation? The first thing you need to do is figure out who your character is, what's their backstory, and how does it tie into the overall main story. I've already done multiple videos on this channel on how to make character backstories, and they don't just apply to Dungeons and Dragons. But Cogent does a great job in their game system of empowering players to create really awesome characters with some unique quirks. But how do these characters work? In Cogent, there are 3 core attributes: strength, reflex, and intelligence. This is the most simple and least amount of core stats I've ever seen in a role-playing game, but it's quite beautiful. Strength is your body's durability and literal strength. Reflex is your dexterity, nimbleness, and reaction time to be able to react to stuff. So both of those are your physical characteristics. And then everything else, people interactions, smarts, ties into intelligence. And with only 3 stats, it keeps things really simple. So also in Cogent now, like any other role-play game system, whenever you say you do some type of action, the game master or narrator asks you to make a skill check of some kind. All this is rolling some dice and seeing how well it goes, good or bad. But the game master also sets a challenge level for how hard that thing it is you tried to do. These go all the way from a simple challenge level 1 all the way up to an almost impossible challenge level 8. And this is how most of the game works. You say you want to try and do something, the game master assigns a difficulty level, and you see if you can beat it. So let's say you want to try and lift something kind of heavy, and the game master asks you to make a strength check. And the thing's heavy, but not that heavy, so they set the challenge level at just 2. So to succeed at a challenge level 2, you need to get 2 success points. Well, what are success points and how do you get them? Well, don't worry, this is where all the dice come in. In those 3 core attributes of strength, reflex, and intelligence, a normal person would have a base 3d6 to make on their rolls. But if you are better at that specific type of thing, you'll be able to roll more and more dice that I'll get into in a second. And a bonus perk about Cogent for all you math haters out there is there is no math involved, and you actually don't have to add dice values together at all. Because to get a success point, you roll those d6s, and every time you get a 4, a 5, or a 6, that's 1 success point. Any 1s, 2s, or 3s do nothing for you. So let's say you have normal strength and you make that 3d6 roll to try and beat this challenge level 2 strength check, and you get this. Look at that. You got 2 success points from the 6 and the 4 and nothing from the 1. That is 2 overall success points, and you got it. You lift the thing up, no problem. If you rolled less than that and you didn't get enough successes, the game master would describe either you literally failing because you're not strong enough, or a narrative failure in some ways could mean some other complication occurs. Maybe the thing's fused to the ground, or you hurt your back in the middle of trying to lift it. But not all characters are the same across all those 3 attributes. Here's what you start whenever you customize your character. You're given 2 attribute points to put into strength, reflex, or intelligence. You can spend these 2 attribute points however you want. You can put them both into strength, both into reflex, both into intelligence, or split them up and put them into 2 different ones. But what these 2 points represent are 2 d6 that you're able to now put into those dice pools. Like I said, a normal person would have 3d6 for each one of those categories, but you now get to be a little different. Customize your character. What would you put your points into for this hypothetical character that you'd want to build? For myself, I'm going to put 1 to strength and 1 to intelligence. But this is one of my favorite parts, because unlike other role-playing games that have certain attributes that only affect combat in certain ways, like with a huge sword, you normally only add your strength modifier to that. In Cogent, all 3 stats go towards combat, which gives you the freedom to truly make whatever kind of character that you want to play and role play, and still be effective in combat, because it makes sense. If you are 2 points into strength, you're real strong and you're hitting real hard. If you got 2 points into reflex, you're really quick and make quick and effective strikes, being able to read a whole bunch of stuff all at once. And if you're really smart, 2 points in intelligence, you're going to be like Sherlock Holmes, thinking in slow motion, looking for that right moment to strike. Let's customize things even further. So you know those 3 attributes we've been talking about. Each one of them has 4 sub-skills and 1 overall perception skill. Also, when you create your character, you get 8 skill points to spend on skills, vocations, and combat proficiencies. We'll get into vocations and combat proficiencies here in a second, but just like those other attribute points, skill points mean additional d6s to add on to those skills. Time out. I can't talk about Cogent without showing you the character sheet, which is super simple and fits on just 1 page. So like I said, for attributes, those 2 boxes represents those 2 possible points you can put wherever you want. So for my character, I'm filling in 1 in strength and 1 in intelligence. And for those backwards slanted boxes, those are actual negatives on your character that would minus a d6. Usually these come in at character creation when we talked about those disabling characteristics where you actually can lose a d6 in something to give your character a little bit more quirks. But this could also represent a temporary status effect or condition that your character's under. Easy way to keep track of stuff. And here's a list of all 13 core skills in Cogent Roleplay. And I can't stress this enough. To find out how many dice you need to roll for anything you need to do in this entire game, you always start off with 3d6 as your base for whatever this thing is. Then you add that attribute bonus of if it's a 1 or a 2 into that specific thing. Then you add on that skill bonus if it pertains to that specific skill. I'll get into more examples here in a second, but while you're looking at my character sheet, if the game master asked me to make a stealth check, which falls under the reflex category, I would have my base 3d6 as always. I'd add my reflex points for my attributes, which I have none of, okay, so I'm still at 3d6, but I put 2 points into stealth because I'm real stealthy. That's a total of 5d6. The best way to think about this when you're spending these points, whether it's in attributes or skills, is a normal person has a +0 at different stuff. Normal intelligence, reflex, and strength would just be a normal person like you and I. But if you have 1 point into something, that means you are definitely better than the average person. You have trained at this and you are very good at this specific thing, whether it's sleight of hand, you're really good at stealing stuff, or it's strength and you're way stronger than the average person. But if you put 2 points into something, you'd be next level and a master at this. So for something like strength, you'd be an Olympic level weightlifter or a championship fighter. 2 points into reflex, you could be a gold medal gymnast or archer, depending on how the flavor of your character is. 2 points into intelligence, you're a genius or a Sherlock Holmes level detective. You get the idea, but keep this in mind when you're spending those points to customize your character. So now let's say, for example, that I wanted to convince some guards that I didn't actually steal something that I really did steal. And let's say that that thing I stole is in my hand right now, so the game master sets the challenge level at 5. So I'd have to make a deception check, which falls under the intelligence attribute. Everyone starts at 3d6, but we have that 1 extra point from our attributes, bringing us to 4d6. And since we're a huge liar and all, let's say that I put 2 points of those 8 points I got into the deception skill. I would add those 2d6 on top of my 4d6 for a total of 6d6 to try and lie to this guard. I roll them and get this. Oh, that's only 4 success points. So close. This would be a failure and the game master would then come up with what happens. This can dynamically change based on how much you fail or how much you succeed away from that challenge level. And if I were to somehow succeed on all 6 of those dice and get 6 success points and beat it by 1, maybe the guard believes me so much, he's like, oh yeah, here, you forgot this too. Maybe a 5 exactly would mean they believe me and tell me to go about my ways to return the item. And maybe if I fail by 1 like I did right now, they would just take the item back and let me go about my business. Man, if I only got 2, 1, or 0 successes, which would be a critical failure, I'm in for some trouble. Another brilliant thing about Cogent that I really liked, and it's kind of refreshing to see, is that the perception skill is a universal skill. One of the most common things is to look around and see what you see around yourself, and sometimes only certain people are proficient in perception. This time, you can always add all of your attribute points to perception. If you want to be even better at perception, you can totally put those extra points into the specific perception skill too. They've also cleanly tied it in with insight, so it's just your general perception and feelings about the world around you. Well done, Cogent. But now what if the characters trapped in that creative mind of yours don't fit nicely into any of these skill categories? What if you're a blacksmith animal tamer who wants to craft some epic metal armor for those beasts that you've been training to fight alongside you? Whoa, 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 hold on. What class is that? Well, that's the thing. There are no classes in Cogent Roleplay. Instead, the things you want your character to do fall into certain custom-made categories called vocations. You as the player literally make these things up alongside your game master, and you can put those skill points into these as well. So for that character I just talked about, I'd give them a blacksmithing vocation, put some points into that, and an animal tamer vocation, put points into that. Now, in general, I would also recommend for you and the game master assign those vocations to an attribute so you know kind of where it comes from. I'd put blacksmithing probably under intelligence, or I could totally see that being a strength thing of hammering away at that metal. These vocations work just like skills to make vocation checks. So if you were to make a blacksmithing check, you would have your base 3d6 plus your intelligence modifier plus your blacksmithing vocation. And I guess anyone could try to make a blacksmithing check, but if you didn't have the vocation, you just wouldn't add those extra dice. You could try it. And that makes sense because anyone could try anything. They just wouldn't have as good a chance at doing something good. Time out. So you want to be a helpful and cooperative teammate at your game table, right? Well, in Cogent, this is called an assist. You can assist someone anytime they're doing something that you feel like you could help them with. Let's say you and your buddy want to pull off a heist, and you are really good at planning and infiltrating things, while your buddy is really good at physically sneaking and moving around stealthily. Now, let's say this thing you're planning is extremely difficult and has a challenge level of 5. You could assist your friend's stealth check with your own infiltration skill. The Game Master sets a separate challenge level for the assist check that you're going to make to try and help them. It could be the same challenge level or lower, but the minimum for an assist check is a challenge level 3, because you really got to make a big difference to be able to give success points to your partner. So how this works is you describe your infiltration plan for your friend, and the GM sets that challenge level, and let's say for this case it's a 4. It's not a full challenge level 5 because it's a little less dangerous for the planning thing, but you got to be real smart. You make your infiltration check and you roll this. Woo-hoo! That's 5 success points, and here's how it works. You grant your friend free success points on their roll for every success point that you have above your challenge level. So if instead I only got 4 success points, that would do nothing because there's no extra points to roll over onto his check. But for this example, you beat it by 1, so now your friend has 1 free success point to start off with going into their roll. Now your friend gets to make that challenge level 5 stealth check, and let's see what they get. Oh no, they only got 4 successes, but don't forget, they get to add that 1 free success point that you made from your assist roll for a total of 5. They made it through. Great work, team. But be careful. This can also backfire. Just like you've seen in movies, a ton of shows, your friends can also screw you up. Assist can go both ways, and this makes sense. And if you start complaining about, oh no, I only want to be able to help my friend, it makes sense. And there's been plenty of times where you've been trying to do something and your friend messes it up. Yes, you do give your friend extra success points for every success you gain over that challenge level, but you also give them a negative onto their roll and subtract off success points for every point that you fall short of that challenge level. So that challenge level 4 infiltration, if you only got 3 success points, you were 1 short, and now they actually lose 1 of their success points. I do really love the risk and reward of this and the stories that will be told from friends accidentally screwing each other up. But some of you have been waiting for this. What about combat? What does your character fight with? Great swords, bows, guns, magic? The final thing you can spend those 8 skill points that we talked about at the beginning on are combat proficiencies. What are you specifically good at fighting with? There's a lot of different weapon types in this game, or you can make up your own. Of course, work with your game master and figure something out that balances along into the game system of what's already there. But for that blacksmith animal tamer, maybe your weapon is an armored saber-tooth animal companion. Or what about magic? This is also where you can put points into different magic types based on your game master's magic system that they have in their game. There are so many possibilities here for magic, like Avatar, firebending type stuff, Star Wars, Force telekinesis type stuff, Dragon Ball Z teleportation and energy attacks. Literally anything you want to do, you can come up with. Just work with your game master and talk it out to find something that feels right. And if you like stuff like that, I can totally do some homebrew videos on Cogent. Like and subscribe. Time out. If you can't tell, I am hyped up about Cogent Roleplay. My main hobby and passion, and the only tabletop roleplay system I've ever dove headfirst into, is Dungeons and Dragons. Other game systems out there have never spoken to me enough at my core to want to dive into and check out. But this whole Cogent thing is super awesome. To my current subscribers, don't worry, I'll still be making regular D&D content as usual. But for anyone else that's excited about Cogent, subscribe to the channel and share this video with as many people as you know that might want to get into this easy access roleplay system, because it could be their first roleplay system that gets them into this hobby to play whatever your favorite one is. We'll see how it all goes, and I'll keep it coming. So let's get into combat. Now you understand everything about the rules and characters in Cogent. You have skills that you'll need to be able to make checks with based on a challenge level that you have to earn success points to try and beat, and the more dice you have, the better shot you got. But what if someone else is trying to contest you or go against you in a conflict of some kind? Well, this is real simple. You both make checks and compare success points to see who won. The more points you have over the other person, the more you succeed. This could be for non-lethal things about trying to find someone, and you'd make a perception check versus their stealth check. Or an arm wrestling competition where both of you make strength checks to see who wins. But what if the stakes are higher than arm wrestling? Then it's time to roll for initiative. One of the coolest things about Cogent is its combat system, because it's unlike anything that I've ever seen before. There is an initiative order, and it's based off of whoever has the highest reflex score. Sounds normal so far, but the person with the highest reflex goes last. What? Now let me clarify. In Cogent, there's a declaration phase where everybody says what they're going to do. This will make a lot of sense here in a second. That light bulb's going to go on. The slowest person declares what they're going to do in combat first. Then the person next slowest after them declares what they're going to do after they just heard what that first person's going to do. This continues, and maybe you're starting to see it now, until you get to the fastest person who gets to listen to what everyone is going to do. Then they get to declare what they are. And once you go technically backwards through the initiative order to the fastest person, now you issue it out starting with them during the action phase to play it all out. How crazy is this? Now, this doesn't mean that that fastest person just gets to succeed and screw up everyone else, because it does still come down to their combat roll to see how things go. So for example, let's say you're all alone fighting 3 bandits, and the first one declares they're going to jump on top of a table for some high ground. The next one says they're going to shoot you across the room with a bow and arrow, and the last one says he's going to go run and kidnap the old man. But you have the highest reflex. You heard all of this, and you get to decide what you want to do. That is so cool. Do you want to go flip over the table before the guy can jump on it? Do you want to duck for cover before the archer can shoot you? Or do you want to go save the old man? This just feels so cool to me, and truly what someone with fast reflexes would see as this all happens at the same time. Instead of a turn-based combat feel, you get to all have everyone say what's going to happen, what their plan is, and then as it all unfolds, the dice tell the story. Oh, and I'll say this, anyone with a tied reflex, each rolls a d6, and whoever wins gets to be able to go first. Or I guess last. Higher reflex, whatever. So once everyone finishes the declaration phase of what they say they're going to do, you go into that action phase we talked about a second ago, and start making the combat rolls from the fastest person all the way through. Now there's some really interesting stuff that can happen here. I can do a whole video over combat to get into the intricacies, but you get the idea of how cool and dynamic this combat would be. So to figure out how good or bad combat goes, you start going through each person and they make their combat roll based on what they said they were trying to do. Let's say we chose to go save that old man. We draw our short sword out, intercept the bandit, and attack it. So let's see if you can stay with me now on how this dice would work, because it's the same every time. You have your base 3d6 that you always have no matter what. Then you add your 2 attribute points no matter what they're in. Like I said before, ours are in strength and intelligence, but you have 2 no matter what. So that's 3d6 plus 2d6 for 5d6. Then this is a combat check, and we said we're using our short swords. So that would be one of our combat proficiencies of what we're good at, like we talked about before. Let's say that we put 2 points of those proficiency skill points into short swords. We'd add those 2d6 of how good we are at using short swords onto our 5d6 for a total combat roll of 7d6. You see how all these things are consistently adding up from their different categories? But there is one more thing that you add on to specifically combat rolls, and that's the actual weapon bonus. But let me be clear, weapon bonus is different than weapon proficiency. Your weapon proficiency is the dice you gain from how good you are at using that type of weapon, which is either going to be +0 if you, anyone can use any weapon, they would have +0 at using that. I could use a great sword, but I wouldn't be that great with it. Or you can have a +1 or a +2. Combat proficiencies. But the weapon bonus, on the other hand, is how deadly or powerful this weapon is, which makes sense because a short sword would have less dice behind it than a great sword. Different weapons have different ranges of dice values associated with them. With unarmored attacks, with nothing in your hands, actually subtracting dice from your roll. Short swords are more of a neutral baseline with +0d6, and it's like your standard combat weapon. And you can get all the way up to adding even more for two-handed weapons or ranged weapons. So to finish up this example, we would add our weapon bonus of a short sword, which we just said was +0d6. So it's kind of anticlimactic there. But boom, we have that same 7d6. And let's see how many success points we get. Oh, 4 success points. But this is fighting. You're fighting against other people who are also going to be making combat rolls themselves. So this number represents both offense and defense of how good I was in combat, dealing damage to others and protecting myself. So you would compare these success points to the person that I attacked. So for a very simple and basic example of this combat, that bandit that's rushing over to the old man, he would make a combat roll. For the sake of simplicity, let's say he has all the same stats and he rolls 7d6, but he only gets 2 successes. So now I would compare my successes to their successes. We got 2 success points over them now. So in combat, this means you have a victory level of 2. There are 5 different levels of victory, and this only happens in combat. And this lets you damage the enemy or temporarily disable them. However many points you beat them by gives you more options to do things like trip them, disarm them, stagger them, or even dismember them. As you inflict more and more injuries on your opponent, they lower the amount of dice that they roll every round. This whole combat system is pretty simple, because if you get 2 success points over your enemy, that means you get a victory level of 2 over them. And a victory level of 2 lets you inflict a level 2 injury onto them. And a level 2 injury lowers the amount of dice that they roll in the next combat round by 2. This is just too simple. Huh? Too simple? Huh? Basically, success points in combat are called victory points, and you spend them to hurt your enemies. If you have a level 1 injury, you minus 1d6 on every roll, just like that level 2 injury, minus is 2d6 all the way up. But the scary part is at injury level 5, victory level 5, you can inflict a killing blow. So if in combat you ever get 5 success points over your enemy, or the other way around, you can deal, or they can deal to you, the death blow. A straight up kill might sound crazy, but this makes combat very scary and tactical to have to protect yourself and your allies, which actually is really cool, because sometimes in combat and RPGs, especially when you get to higher levels with hundreds of hit points, you start to feel more like gods than actual adventurers. This will definitely keep you and your players on the edge of your seats. But the one thing standing between you and death is your armor. Armor in Cogent has both positive and negative effects, which makes sense because it both protects you, but it does wear you down and slow you down, and has to be really cumbersome to wear while fighting. How it works is different amounts of protection gives you different amounts of armor points. Leather armor is 1 point, chainmail is 2 points, full plate armor is 4 points, and if you choose to wear a shield, that's an additional 2 points. So the most amount of armor you could possibly have would be full plate armor and a shield for a total of 6 armor points. If somebody has a victory level 2 on you and tries to inflict that level 2 injury, you can instead spend 2 armor points to cancel it out. Your armor would go from 6 down to 4 and eventually get back down to nothing, and you'd be exposed again. And once you spend up all these armor points, they do not reset until combat is over. Armor points are the positive parts of armor, but also wearing all that heavy armor really slows you down, and it makes you not as offensively effective in combat. How this works is wearing armor gives you a combat penalty. For every 2 points of armor that you have, you lose 1d6 for your combat roll. So if you're fully decked out wearing 6 points of armor, you would be minusing 3d6 from all of your combat rolls. And even when you're in combat and your armor points are getting spent up and worn down, you always have that penalty. This really gives you some interesting choices to see how you want to outfit your character with. You could totally be a barbarian, run in there with no armor and a huge 2-handed weapon and deal some damage, but no armor. But that does sound kind of fun. Time out. Depending on how well this video does, I want to do follow-up videos and fully dive into this combat system and give you examples of how it actually looks. So if you want to see more Cogent stuff, then you gotta let me know. Subscribe, comment, like the video, share it with other people so you can teach them how to play this game. That's why I created this specific video, so that I feel like in this day and age, I don't really see if I told somebody that I wanted to play Cogent with, hey, go read the rule book. That's just probably a pretty daunting task nowadays. So I wanted to make this video so you could literally just share this video, they could watch the video and be good to go. Any future videos I make over Cogent will also be linked down in the description. Home stretch now, let's go. Now that you know how Cogent works, I can tell you this. Those 3 core attributes that I started this whole thing off with, strength, reflex, intelligence, they give you a little bit of extra bonuses that you're now ready to hear. The in-game mechanics of strength are very similar to what I just talked about with armor. For every point of strength that your character has, you're able to reduce the enemy's victory level on you. Now you can only spend your strength like this once per combat, but it really gives those strength characters that combat edge. Reflex is an obvious one, and we've already talked about it. It sets the pace of combat and lets you go sooner than anyone else and see what they're going to do. It's super strong. And don't forget about intelligence, because my character, I put 1 point into strength and 1 point into intelligence, because every 1 point that you put into intelligence gives you 3 skill points that you can spend on any skills, vocations, or combat proficiencies that you want. Makes you more versatile and skillful. Now, fellow game masters and narrators out there, don't think that I forgot about you, but this is another great thing about Cogent. Everything that I just said are pretty much all the rules, and if you know the player's rules, you can pretty much run the game. Now, don't get me wrong, being a game master has a lot of things involved, and there's a whole bunch of skills that you have to have, and players you have to manage, and things that you have to create, and I've done a ton of videos on my channel going over all of that. But this rule system is very simple, which it takes a lot off the plate of new game masters. But I got a sweet mechanic for those game masters masters call the destiny roll. This is the most universal and simple rule of all. A destiny roll is made when there's something that's about to happen in the world that has an unknown result that you don't know how good or bad it'll be. Maybe it's something simple like the weather and you don't know what's going to happen, what things they might encounter along the way. Something's about to fall. How bad is this? What does it land on? Is it good or is it bad? Basically, anytime there's a point in the story where there's something unknown and you want to see what happens, grab that D20 and roll it. The game master then makes an interpretation based on the high or low of that D20 to see what happens. The higher the roll, the more advantageous and positive that it is for the players or the situation at hand, and the lower the value, the more complications or bad stuff that happens. And if you get a nat 1 or a nat 20, buckle up, because something crazy is going to happen, either really good or really bad. I think the extremes of this nat 1 and nat 20 are huge, and for me, a 20 and a 19 are very different compared to a 19 and 18, and the same thing for a 1. Because when I make a destiny roll and I hit one of those two numbers, you feel it at the table. I absolutely love these destiny rolls. I call them fate rolls before I knew even what Cogent was. I have used this for years at my Dungeons and Dragons table, and I could do a whole video on these. But players also get some destiny action of their own in the form of destiny points. Each player gets 3 destiny points to start off with, and you can earn them from your game master as rewards for great role play or other cool stuff that they want to hand it out to you for. Players can spend these points in one of 3 ways. If there's a roll that's coming up and you know this is super important for your character, you can spend a destiny point to gain advantage on your roll of however many d6s you're about to roll. Here's what the word advantage in Cogent means. Normally, when you roll those d6s, you get a success point for any 4, 5, or 6. Advantage means you get a success for 3, 4, 5, and 6. Increasing those odds, maybe by a lot. But let's say it's too late. You've already made the roll. The dice have already fallen, and you needed 4 success points, but you only got 3. The second way to spend destiny points is you can spend destiny points to gain success points. Those rolls that are super important for your character and you really need that thing to happen, spend those destiny points and change the game. And the final way to spend destiny points are on destiny rolls. If that game master makes that roll, it hits and it lands and it's on a 1. Oh my gosh, the city's in danger. Destiny point. You can spend these destiny points and change the fate of the game and the fate of the story. Time out. I really want to say thank you to you, Jazza, for bringing me in on this, shaking things up and making me so excited about Cogent. I've had multiple talks with him and he really is a great guy, and we're also eerily similar. I know firsthand how busy things can get with YouTube, and I can only imagine how busy this guy is with his entire schedule, but he still carves out time for little old me to talk about Cogent. I've actually been a subscriber of his main art channel for years, and he really got me back into art. I mean, look at all these markers. And I've loved seeing what he's doing with his Tabletop Time channel, which is where he shows all the gameplay footage of Cogent. He's truly doing everything in his power to make this game system as best as it can, and he's truly passionate about it. And it's contagious because I'm really excited about this thing too. I want to get out there and show more people what this thing's all about. I plan on working with him as closely as he wants me to and help unlock all the potential that this game has to offer. So go check out his channel in the description called Tabletop Time. Subscribe for more Cogent gameplay over there. I'm also going to have the official Cogent Discord down in the description. You can join the community, talk about the game, and no matter how many updates this game goes through, the creators have said that this game will always be 100% free. And if you want to check out those updates and more things about Cogent and see the full rule book in all its glory, you can go to CogentRoleplay.com. I really hope this video helped you learn Cogent. You can jump in and go play it yourself right now, and share this video with your friends that you want to play it with so they can learn too. And as always, stay creative and think outside that box. Peace.